Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Minato sealed the Kyuubi into Naruto. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. People were in a panic as they were being herded to the safety zones by the genin. The Kyuubi was attacking Konoha, and a fourth of the city and its outlying lands were already destroyed. Through this, however, one man was walking fairly calmly. One would only say fairly because he wasn't rushing in a panic. He had an idea of what was going to happen. He'd been to the battlefront before being called to check on his wife and her removal to safety. She had been in poor health ever since entering her third trimester, and her health had degraded yet again. While he was attending to her, a Hyuga who worked in the Anbu came and gave him a report on the Hokage and his preparations to attack the Kyuubi himself. While the Anbu didn't understand the importance of what they had said, Hyuga Hiyashi did, and he was going to confront the Hokage before he finished his work. "I'm sorry, my son, but this is the way it has to be," said Minato to his newborn child. He had worked in tears whole nights. He had been happy when his son had been born a few hours ago, and then his wife had died, and he was devastated, but he had his son to comfort him, a reminder of his wife. He'd had no idea that he would be forced to give up his own life, and leave his son alone in the world just a few hours later. He cried as he thought over what his son would go through. He had told his Sandame Hokage that he wanted his son to be remembered as a hero, but he knew how life was, and he knew that his son would not be honored but hated. But to protect his village, and give his son the power to defend it, he had to do this, and curse his son to a life, at least at the beginning, or hate. As he raised his hand to finalize the seal, he heard a hard knock on the door. He quickly put his son the crib next to him and covered most of his seal work on the desk. "Come in quickly." And so Hiyashi did, bowing to him. "Hokage-sama, I have a request to make of you." The Yondaime Hokage almost slapped his face. "Hyuga Hiyashi, can this not wait until after the Kyuubi is dealt with?" Hiyashi looked at him pointedly. "I think we both know that you will not be here after to deal with me." Minato looked at him with a stronger expression. It was not surprise, but something akin to it. "What do you mean?" The Hyuga pointed behind the Hokage's desk. "Your son is soon to be a Jinchuriki, and you will be dead. And I think that we also both know how the people will treat your son when they learn of this." Minato sat down, feeling even more the weight of what he was doing. "Hyuga Hiyashi, you know that I must do it, and how could I do this to another's child but my own? This terrible curse will be his burden, but also a gift so that he can better protect this village." "I may have something of a solution," the Hyuga said. Minato raised an eyebrow. "Oh? My heir is yet to be born, but would it not be possible to arrange a seal so that the Kyuubi is sealed into them instead? And then after this, would it not be possible that we arrange to have me and my family take care of the child? This would cause both misdirection, and allow your child to have support from those around him." Minato had put his elbows on the desk, with his fingertips together just in front of his face, and was now looking at the Hyuga critically. "This is an interesting idea, Hyuga-san, but tell me, why?" Hiyashi smiled and sighed. He was being considered. "Hokage-sama, you obviously fear some individual trying to destroy the village in the years after your death. The initial plan here is to create misdirection as to whom you sealed the Kyuubi into. They will no doubt learn of it, and this will draw further attention to him. However, the real Jinchuriki will not be known, and thus protected with more ability to be trained in secret. On top of that, the Jinchuriki will have a powerful Kekkei Genkei to aid them in their future battles." The Hokage was listening, slowly tapping his fingers together. Then he tilted them to direct him at the Hyuga. "What about you? What about your child? Why?" Hiyashi had hoped that he'd be satisfied with the other answers, but that didn't mean that he wasn't prepared to answer this one. "Hokage-sama, you know that we will seek the best interest of Konoha, and I will be candid in my response, especially since we both know that you will know if I lie. My clan has been in some degree of decline for years. While it is true that our plan would cause misdirection, it would also provide cover for my child so that they can help us cease our decline without the hate that would otherwise be directed towards them. While publicly this power would hurt us if it is kept secret, it could yet save us, and who else would there be better than us to handle this task?" Hiyashi ended there, hoping that the Hokage would go with his plan. For now the Hokage was looking at his own child, pulling him from the crib to cradle him as he thought. Some minutes later Hiyashi left the tower with a seal paper in his hand, and instructions on how to use it. He would have a Jinchuriki as a child, and he would provide protection for the Hokages as well, despite the inconvenience. He felt the reason that he was trusted in the end is the knowledge that his pride would ensure that he kept his word. He was a little saddened by the last thing that the Hokage had told him, though. "No, Hyuga Hiyashi, that this will further degrade your wife's health. She will be more likely than ever to die, as mine did, at childbirth." Hiyashi had only nodded, and signaled that he continue with his seal work. He had already resigned himself to her probable death. This pregnancy had not gone well with her, and so he expected the worst. Still, the Hyuga would get what they deserved, the power they ought to have. Besides, they would have the child of the Hokage in their midst. Surely he would be as naturally talented as his father. What secrets, what new abilities would he add to their midst? Smiling, Hiyashi quickened his pace to make sure that he would make it in time. He would place the seal on his wife's belly, and when the Hokage seemed to be sealing the demon into the child that was in his arms, that seal would be transferring it to Hiyashi's unborn child, his heir, and the one he felt would be a powerful shinobi one day to give them back the power and respect that ought to be theirs. Minato looked down at his son. "Am I doing the right thing, Kushina, my love, for our child? I just don't want him to be alone." He looked out the window at the towering Kyuubi. "No one should be alone in this world, but he will still be hated for nothing. Is there nothing that I can do? Nothing for him, or for Hiyashi's poor child that will be trained solely to be a weapon?" He stroked the face of his now dead wife in the picture that he kept at his bedside. A moment later, an idea came to him. Summoning jutsu. Sometime later, after the attack was over, a small toad was creeping around. They knew that someone else had been watching, as had Minato-sama, so they had worked things out to still deliver a message. Those darn rude Anbu were so annoying, though. That Danzo had been giving them trouble for years, and killed more than one toad that had been sent as a spy, but far fewer than had been sent. Fortunate, even he did not know about Minato's conversation with Hiyashi. No one knew, and only one other person would. Hiyashi had promised that only he would know the truth, but the Hokage wanted another to know, so that they would be able to provide further protection and guidance to both children. Minato had even entertained the thought that Hiyashi's child might be a daughter and that having another influence could bring the two together and form a greater bond. Of course, getting to the person unseen would be the most difficult part. Those eyes could see everything. Of course, a toad would be a little less suspicious than normal, and there was the little stream that came into the garden. Soon Gamatuki was in the garden and began to look around for the one he wanted. He found him in a room further away from the main family, playing with his little son to distract him from craziness that was surrounding the village's atmosphere at the moment. He approached him. After all, the child was young and would be easily put to the side while they talked. "Hyuga-san, I have a message for you." The branch member looked up in surprise to see a talking toad, but reacted quickly, telling his son to look for a flower for him from the garden. "Did the Hokage send you? I know he can do toad summons." The toad nodded. "Yes, and he had something he wanted you to know and take care of." As the toad explained, the man's eyes widened in surprise, but nodded as he was asked to look after the two children. "Very well, they shall be watched over by me discreetly. I shall not fail in this last mission that the Hokage has given me, and I will love his son as my own." "Very good. Good luck, Hyuga-san." The Hyuga man nodded. "Thank you, and may Kami grace you and your family." With that, the Hokage's last will was given out, and the next day it was announced that a paper in the Hokage's office showed that he had gone over all those who could take in the child the Kyuubi was sealed into, and that the Hyugas were selected. Hiyashi put on a show of not wanting the child, but took him in. The Hyuga were pitied more than reviled for this, as Hiyashi had shown how much they didn't want the child, and so things looked well. Still, one Byakugan set of eyes pitied the child, knowing the truth. The future for this child would be hard and harsh, but he would do what he could to soften this for him, and also for his nephew, or would it maybe be a niece? He shrugged. He'd just have to wait another month or so for the Hyuga heir to be born, and then watch over them closely. Hyuga Hiyashi frowned as he sat at his desk. Things had been hard over the last few years. He had 2 children now, but no wife. She had lived through the labors of their Jinchuriki child, somehow, and he had been happy at that, having expected to lose her then, but then she had gotten pregnant again. The second pregnancy had seemed well and good, until she hit the last weeks of her 3rd trimester. Her health had gone from good to terrible. She hadn't had a chance to live through this one, and they'd had to cut the baby from a dead mother. It was revealed that she'd had some inner scar tissue that, initially, had been hard enough to handle a child, but once the child was large enough it turned to a detriment as there were cracks in her wound that should not have been there, and she was torn apart from the inside. The usually stoic Hyuga had turned even more so. When he did show emotion, it was usually disdain. Not even when he was alone in his office, looking at the only picture of his dead wife that he had, would he smile. But thinking on those things was not actually what was making him frown. He had just come from training his 4-year-old daughter and heir, Hinata. Things had not been going as he had expected 5 years ago. The child did not seem overly powerful. In fact, she was shy and weak to all appearances. Only he, who knew to look for the Kyuubi in her, knew the power that she actually possessed. Harumphed, as he thought on how things were not going as planned, and leaned over to do more clerical work. Or in more mundane term, the useless paperwork that accompanied every high-ranking position in every world in every dimension that has ever possibly existed. "Come on Neji-Nissan, tell me." The slightly taller boy grinned as he pushed his little blonde, not brother over. "Sorry Naruto, but I'm afraid I can't. You would only tell." A little Naruto sat down, crossing his legs and arms in frustration. To top it off, he closed his eyes, looking to the side, and stuck his bottom gum out some. His pout was too perfect. Neji laughed, gaining a glare from Naruto who now slapped his knees. "Come on, I told you mine." "Yes, but you can't keep a secret to save your life." "Yes I can. I never told Hizashi-san who it was that." "Shush." Neji desperately tried to shut Naruto up before he could say anything, fear written all over his face. "Put the snails on Hiyashi-sama's desk." Neji froze, fear almost overcoming the 6-year-old, and he slowly turned around to where Naruto obviously wasn't looking. There he was, Hiyashi-sama. Crap, now he was going to get it. Hyuga Neji. How many times have not to prank your uncle Hiyashi? Neji looked at him in confusion for a moment as Naruto gaped that there was someone else in the garden now. Two someones actually, and the other one was giggling slightly behind Hizashi, clutching his formal robe that he occasionally donned when his brother was too busy to see guests. It was easier, and as long as the formal headband was involved, no one was ever the wiser. Then it dawned on Neji that it was his father, and his fear left him, exchanged for a sheepish grin. "I'm sorry, father." His father kept frowning, but only sighed before addressing Hinata. "Come on Hinata, you can't stay back there forever. You're lucky to have some spare time now to relax with your cousins." "Yes, Hizashi-san." She slowly came around and sat down in the wooden porch a couple feet on Neji's left. Naruto smiled wide. "Hinata-sama, how've you been? I'm really looking forward to." "Shush." Neji went, sweeping a flat hand across his throat, cutting Naruto off. Seeing you again?" "Yeah, I was really looking forward to seeing you again. That's it." Hinata blushed slightly at her ever-exuberant friend, raised as a cousin. He was always over-energetic. But she was a little sad that her cousins were trying to keep something from her. She looked down sadly, but neither of them could see it because she had put her face to her hand when she giggled, trying to keep up the decorum she was being raised with as the Hyuga clan heir. She didn't notice when Naruto's face lit up again and meeped in surprise when he grabbed her sleeve. "Hey Hinata, I found something by the pool earlier. Come, I'll show you." He was quickly dragging her away as Neji rolled his eyes at them. Hizashi simply smiled at Naruto's display, but soon turned to ask Neji a question. "So, have you decided on something?" Neji looked down. "No, father, not really. Naruto took my idea. What else is there, though?" He looked at his father, who smiled kindly down at him. "Of course. Remember, there will be many more in the years to come, so don't let this one get you down. It doesn't have to be the grandest ever just yet." Neji smiled, relived. "Thank you, father. Alright, since I helped Naruto get his, I'll assume that's what your first idea was, we'll go from there." "What is it brother?" Hizashi stepped into the room. The brothers always knew when the other was around, so it didn't surprise him that Hiyashi had known it was him. "Well, brother, I really had two things to ask you about." Hiyashi waved a hand as he continued to work, motioning for his brother to continue. "First off, I request that after the formal party for Lady Hinata's birthday that Naruto and Neji be allowed to have a small party for Hinata. Just for the three of them." Hiyashi looked up at this, quirking an eyebrow. "Oh? And why is that? Naruto and Neji have both gotten rather close to Lady Hinata and would like to give her gifts, as is usual, but since they are all such young children, I thought that perhaps they could be allowed to celebrate the lady's birthday as that. Children. Hiyashi leaned back, resting his elbows on his arm rests as he brought his hands together to contemplate the request. He didn't want his daughter to become soft, and that Naruto, child of the fourth Hokages, was a poor influence on her. He had no seriousness and absolutely no accountability. He was always doing whatever suited him. No, that wasn't right. If it might get Hinata in trouble, then he wouldn't do something. The boy was loyal, Hiyashi had to give him that. And Neji, well, soon Neji would be sealed with the curse mark, so it might be a good way to encourage positive feelings for the future leader of the Hyuga clan. Very well, Hizashi, but I expect you to be there to make sure they don't do anything foolish, understand? Hizashi nodded. Of course, Hiyashi. Hiyashi leaned forward to begin working again on his papers. Well, what? What was the other thing that you wanted to ask? Hizashi looked as close to uncomfortable as a Hyuga ever did. Brother, please, don't make my son have to wear the caged bird seal. Hiyashi froze, in both motion and emotion. He slowly turned his face to look up to his brother. Hizashi, if you even ask me such a thing again, you will learn what it means to feel my wrath. Do you understand? The sealing shall happen next week as was decided by the council. He waved his hand again. You are dismissed, brother. Now go. Hizashi bowed. Of course, Hiyashi-sama. Hiyashi didn't even flinch from the sudden use of honorifics as his brother left. Hizashi, meanwhile, made it to his room in the compound before letting the tears fall from his eyes down to his face. His son would share the same fate as him. He would be forced to live his life as the Hyuga Council directed. His freedom was nearly gone. There were only two significant events over the next few weeks. One was Neji's sealing with the clan's caged bird seal. It hurt, but Naruto was there to help him through that first night of pain after the seal was burned into him. Neji-Nisan, I promise, when I become Hokage, I'll stop this, and find a way to get that thing off your forehead. Still, it hurt, but he tried not to resent Hinata for it. At least Naruto made him laugh, talking about being Hokage. He was too much of a klutz to manage that. The other event was one day when Hinata was training with her father soon after, while Hizashi and Neji watched. Do you understand, son, what your duty is? Hizashi was saying. Neji replied that he did. Hizashi, though, could not stand the thought that his son should be bound to a fate that he could not change, that he would have no freedom to choose. Hiyashi sensed the growing resentment and suddenly turned and made a sign. Hizashi bowled over in pain, crying out, "Take this as a warning. I'll forgive you this time. Now get out of here." Neji was in a near panic. He had no idea what had happened, or why. He tried to ask his father about it, but Hizashi would say nothing. How could he tell his son the fate that lay in store for him? How could he tell him how bound he was? Then Naruto was there, dirty from playing pranks in the garden. Somehow, even with the Hyuga's all-seeing eyes, and their constantly being on guard against them, he still managed to prank them. Of course, he didn't leave the Hyuga compound too much. He snuck out now and then, but after being chased over half of Konoha until an Anbu squad stopped the pursuers, all he did was stick to the shadows, out of sight. Of course now there was always an Anbu around to watch over him whenever he left the compound, but he never knew that. This was, of course, assuming that he didn't manage to sneak past them as well at the Hyuga, which did sometimes happen, much to the elite Anbu's chagrin. This time, though, Naruto had stayed in the compound, playing pranks on some of the higher members of the clan. Hizashi would get an earful since he was the child's official guardian, but he smiled, knowing that Naruto was having fun. As long as there was a smile on Naruto's face, he felt that he was keeping his promise he had made those few years ago. Half of it at least. He hoped that the interaction he created between his two children and Hinata was having a good effect on her. It was hard to tell sometimes, but he knew that his brother was being especially hard on her, even now that he had another child to look after. Hizashi sometimes would offer to watch over little Hanabi as well, seeing her as neglected as he did. But all this was the routine things that happened, and the thoughts that were always in Hyuga Hizashi's mind. These events would simply be a greater influence on the three children come the events following Hinata's birthday, which, as it just so happened, would also be the day peace was made with the Raikage and his village and nation. Alright, today's the day Neji-Nisan. shouted Naruto. The moment he awoke, well, actually he sat up really slow at first, really tired and dreary-eyed until he suddenly remembered what day it was. But, once he did, he jumped up out of his bed and started jumping up and down on Neji's bed. For his part, Neji just moaned. Got back to bed, Naruto. It's too early for this, and besides, we're not giving her our presents until tonight. Naruto was far from deflated by this. Come on, Neji. That doesn't mean that we can't go tell her happy birthday right now. Come on. Now Neji was wide awake. Naruto, you know what happens when someone goes into Lady Hinata's room. We get in big trouble. Naruto was off the bed now, and he was crouching, one hand on the ground, one raised with a finger pointing up and a mischievous smile on his face. But if we go right now, no one will be up yet to see it. And we can leave real fast, too. If someone starts to come in, then we can just climb out the window and no one will ever know better. Neji squared his jaw and tried to look authoritative. Naruto, we can't just go sneaking around. He was going to say more, but then Naruto gave him the puppy eyes. That is, stop it. You know I can't stand when you better, that is we can't, come on. Grr, Naruto just kept hamming it up. He knew Neji would give in to this. He was how he got his older brother to do anything, but he tried not to use his secret weapon too often so it wouldn't lose its effectiveness. Okay, fine, let's hurry up and get this over with, or we'll defiantly get caught. Naruto cheered till Neji shushed him. Then he put on a robe, making sure that Naruto did, too, and stuck his head outside to see if anyone was up yet. Alright, come on, stay close behind me and don't make any noise. Unknown to them, they were seen already, but the other person didn't try to stop them. He just followed them to make sure they didn't get in trouble. He smiled to himself. Those two had no idea just how much he knew about what they did. He tried to let them have fun. After all, it wouldn't do for the child of the fourth to grow up as stoic and stuck up as all the Hyuga that he was raised around. Hinata was having a nice dream, even if it was weird. She was in a field of flowers, playing. There were 9 little fox kits playing with her, but sometimes she thought she saw an evil look on them in the corner of her eye. Still, they were so nice she thought that she was imagining it. So she kept playing, and making them little necklaces and crowns with the lilacs in the field. She was just leaning over to get some more lilacs when she jolted awake. Her sight was all blurry, and her hearing was trying to catch up in her confusion. Ake up, hap, day. She rubbed her eyes sleepily and suddenly her eyes got huge as she realized her 2 cousins were on her bed, staring at her face. Fortunately she didn't scream very loud. It wasn't in her nature to do so, but it did make Neji and Naruto jump back a little. Hinata-chan, are you okay? Her quickened breathing was starting to slow down. Yes, I'm fine, she managed to say. What are you doing here, Naruto-kun, Neji-kun? Naruto smiled while Neji grimaced slightly before adding his smile. We came this morning to wish you happy birthday, they both said brightly. Hinata looked at them, eyes wide again. Then she teared up, sending the two into a panic. Hinata, are you okay? Hinata-sama, what's wrong? They were on either side of her, holding her shoulders, then got surprised when she started to hug them both, which hugs they of course returned, though bemused. Thank you, she managed to say. After a few minutes she was able to calm down enough to talk. I'm sorry. It's just that, well, no one usually cares about my birthday. Naruto smiled big, slapping her on the back. Of course we care. You're like a sister, Hinata-chan. We even got you a little party tonight, after everything else, Neji said, cutting in over Naruto who, once again, almost gave away that they had gotten her special presents besides what was expected for branch members to usually give the heir of the Hyuga clan. Hinata smiled. Thank you, she said again, smiling happily. She had never felt so important and loved in her life. Maybe she was worth something after all. The celebrations that day went very well. The Rikage's representative was quite formal and polite, asking no more than what was needed, and being very complimentary of the things he received. Still, it was very boring to Naruto. The only reason he behaved was because he knew what they were going to be able to do later that night. Even so, he almost mimed barfing during Hinata's formal birthday party. As she received gift after gift, she was looking for Neji's and Naruto's, but was sad when she saw that they were the same as everyone else's gifts. There were many formal clothes, a basic shinobi kit for academy students, books for academy students, A history of the Hyuga clan, which she actually did think was interesting. She'd have to remember to thank Uncle Hisashi later, but nothing was really that good. She held in a sigh. All she wanted was to be able to be a child, like Naruto and Neji, and to be loved like she could see Uncle Hisashi did them. But she had to be strong, so she smiled and said thank you for each gift she received, and held back the tears so her eyes remained dry. No one would know her pain. She was not expecting Uncle Hisashi to come to her room later that night, after the main parties were over. There was still several less than formal parties going on with drinking and laughter, but these didn't generally touch the Hyuga. She was almost ready to get into her bed when she heard the knock on the door. Timidly, she went and opened it to see her uncle. "Are you ready, Lady Hinata? Neji said that they already told you about the extra party for you tonight." Her eyes widened in surprise. She had forgotten. She quickly looked at what she was wearing, and back up at her uncle. He smiled. "I see you forgot during the busy day. I'll wait here until you've gotten changed again." "Thank you, Uncle Hisashi," she said, smiling as she closed the door to change. She wasn't sure what she should wear, though, since she didn't think that this occasion would be as formal as the earlier parties. Still, she didn't wear much else. She quickly decided on a loose kimono-like shirt with a purple floral design and some black pants. "I'm ready, Uncle," she said, opening her door again. "Very good. This way, Lady Hinata." She stayed close behind him as the two of them walked down the halls towards the branch members' quarters. They stopped outside a room next to Hisashi's family quarters. It generally served as a dining room, but for tonight it would be a small playroom for the children. And Hisashi would be calmly watching them, of course. "Here we are. After you, Lady Hinata." As Hinata tried to step through the door, however, she found herself tackled in a hug. She looked up from the ground to see Naruto hugging her, and Neji standing in amusement at his Nissan. "Happy birthday, Hinata-sama," he said. "Yeah," said Naruto loudly as he sat up. "Happy birthday, Hinata-chan." Hisashi got Naruto to calm down enough to get off of Hinata, and then they had some real birthday cake. Fortunately, it wasn't in Hinata's or Neji's natures to be loud or crazy, so the sugar didn't do anything to them, and Naruto always used so much energy that it didn't affect him, either. It was like adding a single bottle of water to a swimming pool. Finally, it came time for Hinata to receive her gifts. First came Neji's. They had agreed to let him go first because he still felt like Naruto's gift was better, and he didn't want her to look at his after Naruto's and think that it was pathetic. Of course, he didn't really have to worry. It was a small package with a lavender floral design. When she opened it, she gasped and held it lovingly. Inside were a few ribbons and a sash. They were lavender colored and had lilac designs. Neji looked on with some degree of trepidation while she looked at her gift. "Thank you, Neji-san. I love them." He smiled. "I'm glad you like it, Hinata-sama. I thought that you could wear the ribbons in your hair, and one of them actually is designed to be worn like a bracelet." "Thank you," she said, already wrapping the sash on and looking for the bracelet-like ribbon. "And of course I like them," she said, smiling at him. Neji was happy, of course. This meant that his gift was a good one after all. Even though he and his father had come up with it to follow the original flower idea he and Naruto had both thought of, he had been worried that she wouldn't like it. "Alright, now it's my turn. Believe it." Neji rolled his eyes as Hinata giggled. "Here it is, here it is," he exclaimed, handing her a medium-sized rectangular package. It was wrapping with the same wrapping paper Neji's had been done it, but it was a bit heavier than Neji's gift. "Come on, open it, open it." "Calm down, Naruto," Hisashi said, smiling. It was one of the only times that he spoke during their little party. He hadn't even said anything when Naruto almost knocked some punch over while they were playing tag earlier. Obediently Naruto calmed down as Hinata opened her present. Now, though, her jaw dropped. She didn't even know what to say or how to react. This was something that she had been wanting for months. And now, here it was. Was she dreaming, or was it really there? "Thank you, Naruto. I love it." Naruto smiled. Their original train of thought had centered on Hinata liking flowers. They all knew how much she loved to look at and try to press flowers, but that she had no place to keep them once she did, so he got her a flower pressing book. It even came with a sheet of material that would hold the flowers in place wherever she wanted to put them on a page after they were pressed. In near worship of her gift, she gently placed it down, then reached over to Neji and Naruto and hugged them both. They hugged her right back, though they were surprised when she started crying. They looked at Hizashi to figure it out, but he only smiled a little sadly to them and motioned that they keep hugging her. Finally she managed to stop and she pulled back. I'm sorry. It's just that, well, I never got such great presents, and I never thought that anyone actually cared about me. Neji and Naruto looked at each other in shock. They knew that she was pushed really hard, but to think that no one cared? They immediately jumped forward and hugged her again, to show that they cared for their cousin. About then the door slid open and another branch member stuck their head in. Looking around they found Hizashi and their eyes lit up. Hizashi, finally. Hiyashi-sama sent me to look for you. He said he wants to talk with you about something important. Hizashi frowned. His brother wouldn't forget that this little party was happening. It wasn't in his nature. However, he was often demanding, especially on his family. Alright, fine, watch over the children while I'm gone. Neji. The young boy turned from the group to address his father. Yes, father? You're in charge while I'm gone, but I expect all three of you to listen to Gokima, Hizashi-san. To Gokima. You can all do that, right? Neji and Hinata nodded, but Naruto glared at the man. I don't like him. Hizashi sighed. I'm sorry Naruto, but for right now, do it for me, okay? Naruto sat down hard and crossed his arms and legs. Fine, but I don't have to like it, it warned. Thank you, son. Now be good, he said, addressing all of them. Then he left. Naruto continued to eye the new Hyuga strangely. Neji and Hinata had already gotten back to the cake and Hinata's presents. They were discussing when she could wear the various ribbons, when Naruto suddenly shouted. They turned in surprise to see Naruto falling over, the Hyuga branch member standing as if he had hit him. Then he disappeared and Neji fell in the same manner. Then there was a poof of smoke and the Raikage's representative turned towards Hinata. Now, girl, it is time for you to come with me, he said. Hinata opened her mouth to scream, but she, too, was knocked out, and picked up. Then the stranger ran off into the night, never noticing that Naruto was already struggling to his feet. Hizashi paused as he walked down the hallway. He had had a sudden feeling of foreboding. What had just happened? Had anything happened? Byakugan. He looked first to where his brother was supposed to be. The office was empty and the lights off. He quickly turned and looked to the room he had left the children in. His Byakugan was powerful enough to see the room, and he almost fell to his knees in despair as he saw the two missing children, and his son unconscious. He reacted quickly, however. Intruder. Someone has kidnapped the heiress and Naruto. He ran outside, looking for the culprit. The house was in an uproar in seconds, shouts of, Byakugan, being heard everywhere, but Hizashi still found the culprit first. He was outside the walls, and everyone else was looking inside, well, except for his brother, but Hizashi knew that Hiyashi was smarter than most of the clan, if a bit cold. Hiyashi jumped down, preparing to attack the shinobi that held Hinata in his arms. However, he was struck by surprise as he realized the identity of the kidnapper. The Kumo representative? The man took advantage of the surprise to hit Hizashi with a kunai in the gut. Hizashi fell over. Why? He managed to ask. The Kumo nin laughed. Why? And miss such an excellent opportunity to gain the Byakugan? This piece, then, was fake. It was convenient, and that's it. Now die. No. The Kumo nin spun around to see Naruto, clutching his side and standing up from his fall over the wall. He was obviously still weak from the hit that he took earlier from the Kumo nin. You will not hurt him. Not Hizashi-san, or Hinata-chan. The Kumo nin laughed, not noticing that Hinata had begun waking during the time Naruto had shown up. A little brat like you? Please, you weren't even a challenge to knock out earlier. He paused, though you do seem rather resilient. That blow I gave you should have knocked you out for a couple hours. Who are you, boy? You are not a Hyuga? That is none of your business, Hizashi cried out, steeling himself from the pain as he lay on the ground. He is part of our family now, regardless of where he comes from. He is as my son. But he was not able to continue as the Kumo nin kicked him. Shut up, old man. I don't care about the now, and this is wasting my time. He looked over at the young blonde boy. I think he'll just take me a second child, that's all. Then the man gasped. No, you won't hurt them again, a small voice said. The man slumped down, looking in surprise at his load he carried under his arm. The little girl had changed somewhat. She looked fox-like, even. He could even see whiskers on her face where some makeup had brushed aside. She had an evil red arua and slitted eyes, but it was the tail sticking through his chest that caused him to drop to his knees. A tail of chakra. I see, he gasped. The fox lives in this girl. He let go of her, and Hinata fell to the ground, unconscious. Too bad. She would have made such a fine addition to Kumo. He fell over, and the moment he did, Naruto ran over to check on Hinata, not the least bit scared. Surprised, but not scared. He couldn't see, from his angle, where that tail had come from, and all he cared about was his Hinata-chan and adopted father. As he checked on Hinata, though, she whispered to him. Naruto, son, come over here. Yes, Hisashi-san, do you understand what just happened? Naruto shook his head. Well then, son, can you promise to keep what I'm about to tell you a secret? Yes, Papa. Tears welled in Hisashi's eyes. He hoped that he deserved such a title from this small child. He hadn't done as good a job as he had wanted for the poor lad, but he still loved him, and the child loved him back, it seemed. He gathered his strength. Naruto, son, I may die tonight, so before I die, I'm going to tell you a secret that was entrusted to me, but your real father. Naruto's eyes widened, but he didn't interrupt, sensing somehow the importance of this thing. Naruto, your father was Namikaze Minato, the fourth Hokage. The night that the Kyuubi attacked Konoha, he sacrificed himself to save the village, and he was going to do to his own son what he could not ask another to do. He was going to seal the 9 tails into you. Naruto gasped, clutching his chest. Why? Is that why everyone outside the compound hates me? Didn't my daddy love me? Hisashi found the strength to put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. He loved you very much, son. He had hoped you would be a hero, but he felt that the opposite would be the case. However, before he left, someone else came to him and presented an alternative. My brother, Hisashi, came to him, and suggested that he used his unborn child instead, and that he would take care of you in exchange. Naruto sat there, no understanding what Hisashi meant. Naruto, instead of the Kyuubi being sealing into you, it was sealed into Hinata. Naruto's eyes got wide. That is how she killed that shinobi, even though I don't think she'll remember it. He grunted. Naruto, I may no longer be able to protect you, so you must protect her as much as you can. Be strong. I have seen it in you. Even this trash from Kumo saw it in you. Promise me you'll protect Hinata and make sure she has a chance to live her own life. Naruto nodded firmly. Yes, Papa. I will protect Hinata-chan with my life. Hisashi smiled. Good. That is good. He closed his eyes. Make sure to tell Neji that I love him, if I don't see him again. Yes, Papa, Naruto replied, crying as the man rested his body on the ground. At that moment Hisashi arrived. Hinata. No one else was around to see it, but he visibly feared for the life of his. The anguish on his face was out of love for his daughter, but it was soon hidden, though Naruto would remember in the years to come and realize what it meant. But that would be later. Hisashi-sama. The man turned, seeing Naruto, and hid his emotions behind his stoic mask once again. Yes, Naruto? The boy pointed. Hisashi felt that fear again. His brother was mortally wounded. Naruto, though, was fine, and was now holding up Hinata as well. Please, I can take care of Hinata-chan. Please, save my papa. Hisashi battled for a moment, but the shinobi was dead. Yes, Hinata would be safe with Naruto until someone else came. Someone else will be here soon, he told him. Just stay here and let her lay down. Yes, Hisashi-sama, was the reply. Hisashi felt like there was a different emotion in his voice than there used to be, but he didn't have the time to deal with it just then, so he carefully, but quickly, gathered up his brother's body and left. Naruto, meanwhile, held Hinata closely, waiting for others to arrive. There was darkness. That was it, just darkness. The little child dried, not knowing where they were. It hurt so much. Why had that man done that? Why did he hurt her precious people? What was going on? Foolish little girl, a low, gravely, and booming voice said. The little girl jumped, sniffing as she looked around. Hello? Is someone there? There was the same voice, but now it laughed, low and dark, mocking. And it is you who are my jailer? How sad. You are weak, and one day, you shall be mine. The laughter was loud now, and the girl grasped her ears, head bowed, crying more than ever. No, 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 no. She kept crying and crying until she heard another voice, but the voice was faint, as though far away. A-N until the next bold. The font was supposed to be way small so you could get the idea that she was hearing his voice as if from far away, and very faint. Too bad this only allows one font size, lol. Hinata-chan. Hinata-chan. Please come back Hinata-chan. Don't go, I need you. Please, come back to me. Hinata-chan. Hinata gasped. She jerked awake, the images that had captured her slipping away. She was in someone's arms, and they were crying, saying her name over and over again. She couldn't see much of the room because whoever it was clutching her had her face in their chest. She realized it was Naruto, and the lingering fear began to leave her as she began to reach and clutched him. Hinata-chan, you're awake. Naruto managed to lean back a little bit, and Hinata was able to see some of the room she was now in. It was one of the few rooms in the Hyuga compound reserved for medical emergencies. Most other clan compounds didn't have such rooms at all, but with the Hyuga's all-seeing eyes, they kept them around, just in case there was a need in the Konoha hospital too far away, or to make someone more comfortable for their trip to said hospital. Hence, she was on a raised bed. How Naruto had gotten up there one could only guess at. His head barely reached the top of the bed, but there he was, kneeling next to her on the bed, crying over her safety. Hinata-chan, I was so scared you wouldn't be okay. That big man was really mean, but it's okay, he's gone now, and I'm here. I'm gonna protect you. I promised Papa-san that I would, and I won't go back on my word. Hinata's eyes welled up in tears. She understood that people were supposed to protect her, but she could feel that they only did it out of duty, but now Naruto was promising to protect her for something else. She could feel the difference, and she held on to him. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Thank you. As they hugged, she could feel the last of her fear and tension melt away, until she recalled exactly what happened and gasped. Naruto. Hisashi-san, Hisashi-san. Is he okay? Naruto's eyes were troubled. Hisashi-sama took him while I looked after you, but they won't tell me where Papa is, he said. I wanted to go look, but... He trailed off. Naruto, I'm fine. Go look for him. But, Hinata-chan, I have to protect you. She shook her head. I'm safe for now. Go. Naruto struggled for a moment before deciding. Okay, but I'm coming right back. She smiled and nodded, pulling herself up into a sitting position, pillow behind her back. She had a slight blush as Naruto stood and jumped off the bed. He grinned at her and ran from the room. Then the other person spoke up. I hope you're happy, Hinata-sama, the voice said, young, but definitely angry. You are safe, and my father is not. But who does my brother care about more? You. Hinata gasped at the anger coming from her beloved cousin. He was sitting in a corner, arms folded, eyes scowling darkly. His headband was a little wet from sweat. She couldn't know this, but it was because of the anger Neji felt at what had happened that night. He was nearly shaking with anger. When he had come to, he'd been taken to see Hinata, even though he wanted to know where his father was. He was told that his father was hurt but he was being taken care of, and everyone needed to look after Hinata right then. If he could, he would have snuck off like Naruto, but with his new caged bird seal, he could not, and even then, Naruto was always better at sneaking than him. So, he had to sit there, watching over the girl who was the reason that his father was hurt, and watch as Naruto gave her his full attention. Didn't he care about their father? Didn't he care that no one cared about their father, and that their father had only gotten hurt because it had to help Hinata? Didn't he see, or was he just too young to be able to understand just now? Hinata, though, couldn't understand why her cousin was so mad at her. His father was another one she knew that protected her because he wanted to. She wasn't happy that he was hurt either. That's why she'd told Naruto to go check on him. Didn't Neji know that she cared, too? Nay Neji-kun, shut up, you've got it all perfect. You've got everything, and nothing goes wrong for you, does it? Neji was on his feet now, hands clenched at his sides. Had Naruto been there he would have given Neji an earful, but it would be some time before he returned, and Hinata was too kind to set Neji straight. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears coming to her eyes. She didn't want Neji to hate her. She loved him like he was a brother, just like he and Naruto loved each other. Why did there have to be main and branch families? Meanwhile, Neji couldn't work up the energy to yell at her anymore, not with her crying like that. Stop crying, he said more quietly, but voice still laced with anger. You don't deserve to cry. He sat back down, ignoring Hinata's cries, looking back towards the door and hoping that he could leave soon, or that Naruto would get back and tell him how their father was. Naruto snuck from corridor to corridor. Seeing a little boy in an orange robe with dark red fringes, you wouldn't have thought that he could go unnoticed, but Naruto managed it anyways. He had a natural talent to sneak, it seemed, especially honed in the confines of the Hyuga compound where he had to learn ways to pull off pranks while remaining uncaught by the all-seeing Hyuga eyes. Still, even now, his mind was all over the place, which was unusual for him. He was always just focusing on what he could do to have fun next, but now he had received an overflow of information, and he wasn't sure what to do with it. The only thing that made complete sense was that he had to protect Hinata from now on. She needed him, that's what he knew, especially since she had that fox thing inside her. Thinking on it, he thought that maybe his dad had liked to play tricks, too. Maybe that was why he decided to make everyone think that the fox was in Naruto. Yeah, he must have liked jokes, but this one wasn't very funny. Now Naruto understood why even some of the Hyuga looked down on him like they did. It wasn't just because he wasn't a Hyuga, like he'd always been told, it was because even they thought that he had the fox inside him. He'd have to tell Dad that this wasn't a very funny joke. Naruto paused to look around. He'd covered about half the compound, but he knew that he didn't need to bother with most of the rest, so he took a turn to the left at the hallway he was in. This was towards the council room. Maybe his Hyuga daddy was already better and was having a meeting. Naruto knew a great place where he could hear or see into the council room without any trouble. There was just a little too much room between two sets of guards, and then pipe to climb where he could get into the roof. A minute later and he was there, crawling through the ducts, remembering the ways he had learned. Yes, there it was. Naruto crept over to the duct and looked down, looking for his dad. Hisashi had had a hard time that night. He had been severely injured trying to save Hinata, and had it not been for Naruto convincing Hisashi that Hinata could wait longer than his brother, he might have been dead. But the Hyuga medics quickly patched up his wounds and used medical jutsu to heal his internal injuries, and yet he was not allowed to see his children and Hinata. They were being kept somewhere else for the time being, and Hisashi was told by the council that he needed a clear mind so that he could attend a meeting to follow his recovery. Hisashi had wanted to grind his teeth at that. He knew that the thing that would allow him to concentrate most would be to see his children, and to make sure that Hinata was also safe. They were everything to him, and these foolish council members would not let him see them. He wanted to spit in their faces and go the children, but his present condition kept him from doing more than glare. Soon enough, he was given a cane and a couple of other branch members to help him into the council room. The only reason he ever attending these meetings was because he was the brother of the Hyuga head, and also his prime bodyguard for public occasions. Thank you, but I can do it alone, he told them, waving them each to the side, gripping his cane tightly. He walked slowly down the hall, holding in grunts of pain with every step. Some of his bandages had yet to be changed, and because of the treatments he was getting, he still didn't have more than half his upper robe on. His left side was bare, and on his right side, his robe barely hung on his shoulder. He looked close to a mummy underneath, his mid-torso and shoulder completely wrapped in bandages, extending to his elbow and down to mid-belly. There was a supposedly dry blood stain on his left side about halfway up, but he could feel the wound reopen just a little as he walked. He paused for a moment, gritting his teeth before continuing. He would not be weak now. He would show them his strength, then perhaps they would let him see the children instead of insisting that he be kept away to rest. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of his slow pace, he reached the council room. The door was quickly opened for him by one of the two branch members that was with him. He noticed that their Byakugan was activated and they had a worried expression. He grimaced. They must have known that he was bleeding again, but decided to let him keep his pride. It was almost embarrassing. Still, he took a breath and entered the room, slowly moving to take his seat. Hisashi, it's good to see you are still moving, said one of the council members. He grunted. Of course I can move. Until I can see for myself that each of the children are okay, I cannot afford to rest. Some council members shook their heads in annoyance. Hisashi, that is not your job right now. Right now we have that taken care of. You just sit back and rest. You will probably see your children soon enough. It is not only my children that I worry about. Hinata-sama is nearly a part of our own family, and though she is my niece, she is as my daughter as well. I will not be satisfied until I know that they are okay, and I see that fact with my own eyes. Hizashi, you will calm down and show proper respect when you address this council. Hizashi kept silent, but everyone could tell that he still felt exactly the same. Hiyashi sighed. He did wish that they didn't treat him so, at times, but this was the order of the Hyuga. To abandon the order long set by the clan was to ensure chaos, and all would fall apart. He would do all he could to prevent that, even ignore his feelings. Council members, please, if we could get to the point of this meeting, he said tiredly. Several nodded in approval, some just shrugged, and the rest looked slightly embarrassed that they had not already started. Several of those in the first and last groups were the ones who had been disapproving of Hizashi. Now, the order of business is, obviously, the attack on the Hyuga compound tonight by the Raikage's representative. We have a peace treaty with them now, and so this could very likely be looked upon poorly, the death of their shinobi just outside of our compound, despite his obvious treachery. Hizashi cleared his throat. Yes, brother? Council, let it be known that before the Kumo shinobi was defeated, he revealed that the peace was a sham. With this knowledge, it is likely that Kumo will try to make as much excuse as possible to take offense to this. Well then, it would have been better that you let him live, fool branch boy. Hizashi forced a stoic smile. It was not I who struck the killing blow, though I admit, to protect the children, I would have been more than willing. Oh? There were several surprised looks at the table. It was well known that he had received his injuries from the Kumo Nen, and so everyone assumed it was him that killed the man. He was found there alone with Naruto, Hinata, and the corpse by Hiyashi himself. If not him, then who was it that had defeated the man? Hizashi realized he had revealed too much, and could see his brother's eyes widen slightly in fear. He suspected now that his secret was out. Well, Hizashi would not let the council know about Hinata, even though Hiyashi was never supposed to know that he knew, too, about Hinata's secret. Of course not. In my condition I could not finish him. Hiyashi-sama arrived just in time. Of course, arriving from the back, he could not initially see the identity of the man, and so struck the blow. He was in his rights, of course, even if Kumo will do all they can to make it look otherwise. Hiyashi had a little sweat on his brow. He knew that this was a bald-faced lie, and he felt some degree of shame for the first time in many years. He wasn't sure why, but maybe it was the accusatory look in his brother's eye, but for some reason, he felt a little ashamed of what he had done to his daughter. Had he really done right? He shook himself mentally. He needed to address the new situation. Of course Hizashi is right, he stated to several groans and mutters from the council. All we can do is point out the overwhelming evidence against Kumo and hope for the best. We will deal with it as needed from there. He stood. Everyone is dismissed, though I wish to talk, take my brother to the children. Any fool can see his bleeding as he sits there, and I doubt he will let himself heal properly till he is satisfied. He waved a hand amid their protest. Go, now. I do not wish to see you, and we will all think better on this with a good night's sleep. It will be a couple of days before we have to really worry about it. Each member of the council slowly got up and left, leaving the two men alone. Before either began to speak, though, they both activated their Byakugans. Each understood the seriousness and importance of the coming conversation and the need to keep it secret. Hiyashi actually widened his eyes slightly in surprise while Hizashi sighed. Naruto, I will see you and the others shortly. Leave now. We'll talk about your punishment later. Darn it. They could hear his voice in the air duct and watched as he scrambled away, back to where he's come in. We'll have to up the guard, brother, Hizashi said. If my son can find it, someone really intent on getting in could also do it, even if they'd have to be exceptionally small. Yes, but we have something else to talk about now. They turned to look at each other. How long since you did? What? Minato, he sent me a message by Toad, asking that I make sure his son was watched over, and why it was that he would be staying with us. Hiyashi was once again seated, elbows on knees and fingertips touching in front of his face. I see. I didn't expect that from him. So that's why you've always been so kind to the boy, and why you've insisted on keeping a close eye on Hinata, even more so than myself. Hizashi nodded. So, who did kill the Kumo Nen? Was it my daughter? Not on purpose, but yes. She saw my pain, and also the Kumo shinobi threatened Naruto, and she was enveloped for just a few seconds by the fox's chakra and killed him with a tail made of this chakra. Hiyashi was getting tired of surprises this night. I see. It seems that she has more potential than I thought, at least, but here Hisashi stood. Stop right there, brother. Don't even start thinking it. I know what Hinata goes through, and I know her personality. She has never been weak, but rather has lacked the motivation to be as strong as you want her to be. That is because she is a person. She is your daughter for Pete's sake, and yet all you do is treat her as a secret weapon. Fa, how can you call yourself her father? Hiyashi's eyes had closed and he was holding back his tears. These were the thoughts that he didn't allow himself to have. He always pushed them away. Order had to be preserved. The clan had to come before his own feelings, didn't it? Don't you dare think I don't care about my daughter. Then you'd better start showing it. Hiyashi stood to match his brother's fury. You don't know how lucky you were to be born second. Do you have any idea the weight that has been on me all of these years? No, you have no idea how much it hurts to constantly be stoned, never showing love for those you care about because your duty is so great you have to push these things aside. Why do you think I wanted Hinata to have this power? If she could be strong, then she would be able to do as she wished, without having to worry about these foolish things. She would be so powerful no one would dare to oppose her, and yet the order and power of the Hyuga would stay strong. He huffed as he ended his rant, hating the pity in Hisashi's eyes. I'm sorry brother, not for the pain you think you have, but because you think it has to be that way. He turned. I'm going to see my children now, Hinata included. He slowly lurched out of the room as Hiyashi collapsed in tears. What had made him explode like that? Why couldn't he have been born second? The slavery of the caged bird seal was nothing compared to that of duty. Was there anyone who was free? Naruto rushed through the halls again, trying to keep from getting caught. He couldn't believe that his hiding spot had been found out. He didn't think he'd ever be able to sneak in that way again. What did father and uncle want to talk about anyways? Didn't they say they were coming straight there to see them? Naruto finally made it back to the room Hinata was in, rushing in and not even noticing the anger on Neji's face and Hinata's sadness. He just jumped up as hard as he could, landing in front of a now shocked Hinata. Dad's fine, he shouted. He's gonna be okay and he's coming here right now to see us. He grabbed her in a hug, causing the small girl to blush slightly. That's great, Naruto-kun, she gasped out, trying to breathe through his tight hug. Neji had jumped up at the news, a smile actually making its way across his face, but soon being replaced by a frown as Naruto's negligence of his brother and his once again total attention on Hinata. Why did he care about her son much? What was wrong that he didn't care about his real family? He sat down again to wait for his father, feeling like he could gag from watching his brother and cousin. He didn't expect to get tackled anytime soon, which was why he found himself on the ground in a bear hug, gasping for air. Neji-Nisan, isn't it great? Papa's okay. He's gonna be alright. Yes, Naruto, that's great. He huffed and puffed, trying to catch his breath as Naruto went on and on about how great it was Papa was okay. Naruto. Can't breath. Naruto's eyes got wide with shock as he jumped off of his brother. Sorry, I'm sorry. Neji took in a couple of breaths before answering. It's okay, I'm fine now. He pulled himself up into his chair. How long till father gets here? Right now, said the deep voice of his father, coming up beside him and kneeling to give him a hug. Oh Neji, my son, I'm so glad you're okay. Neji, after the initial surprise, hugged his father back eagerly. Papa, I'm so glad. They wouldn't let me see you. Shish, it's okay. I'm here now. I'm here. He looked around the room as he hugged his son to see Naruto's grinning face. He noticed that he was already back up on Hinata's bed, sitting on the edge with his legs dangling. It seemed he really wanted to keep true to his promise to protect her, starting now. Hinata, meanwhile, was smiling, but sadly. He wondered what it was that made her so. He stood up, holding Neji in his arms. Neji actually managed to fall asleep in his arms as he cried for the joy of being with his father again. Naruto, Hinata, are you two okay? Yes sir Papa, I'm fantastic. Naruto's face got uncharacteristically serious for a second. And I promise, I'm gonna do what I said Papa. I'm never gonna stop. Hisashi smiled, ruffling Naruto's hair, to which the boy grinned and laughed. I know. I trust you, my son. I know you won't let me down, ever. He turned to Hinata, frowning slightly. And you, Hinata-sama? Are you okay? Hinata looked down. Hi. I'm fine. Her reply was quiet. Hisashi kneeled down a little to speak with her face to face. "Hinata, what's wrong? Tell me, please." Hinata was now looking him in the eyes, and she suddenly burst out crying, grabbing onto the wrist of his hand, which he had placed on her shoulder. Hisashi-san was who hurt, and no one cared. And in the they wouldn't let Naruto-kun and Neji-kun go and and it's all my fault. If it wasn't F for METH, Hinata's verbal cries were silenced by 2 hugs, one from Naruto and one from Hisashi. "Hinata-sama, please, don't blame yourself. I'm fine, and you're fine, and the boys are fine. That's what counts. I would have wanted the boys to make sure you were safe, first. You are important to me, and to them. Hinata, you may be my niece, but I feel for you as if you were my daughter. I love you, and so do my boys. So, don't let yourself feel bad about how things went, okay?" Hinata just kept crying into their 2 hugs and never told Hisashi the things that Neji had said. She thought that maybe Neji was just tired, that maybe things would just go back to how they were. After all, they loved her, right? "This is outrageous," cried the Kumo diplomat. "I'm tired of hearing these gross accusations. You Hyuga killed one of our own out of spite, thinking that it would have no repercussions. What are these lies that we were trying to steal that child of his? I will hear no more of it. I demand that the Hyuga pay for their crimes against us, or so help me, this war will be right back where it started." Sarutobi sighed. These talks were getting nowhere. He knew that the Hyuga were not lying in this case, but there was a war at stake here. What could he do? He lifted his head. "Sherry-san, I ask that you give me some time to talk to the Hyuga alone. I will discuss with them their claims and I will see what they are willing to do. After all, we cannot have a war again." The Kumo representative smiled. It seemed things were finally going his way. "Fine. I'll be back here tomorrow at the same time, and when I get here, I expect recompense. These talks have gone on far too long already, Hokage-sama." Sarutobi nodded, dismissing the man and the other diplomats that were present. He sighed again, wondering what would happen. He shivered at the thought. He knew the Hyuga, and he thought he knew what they might do, but he hoped not. After all, Minato's son was happy. It would royally suck if he had to lose the man he called father. Of course, Sarutobi was rarely given a reason to go and visit the boy, so he might be able to make good use of this visit. "Welcome, Hokage-sama, what brings you here today?" The branch member guarding the entrance to the compound eyed the Hokage warily. He respected the man, but with Kumo making all the fuss they were, he couldn't be sure that this was really the Hokage. Until the man smiled and spoke. "Oh, I just thought that I'd take a nice little stroll, and here I am." A Sarutobi among Hyuga. Odd, isn't it? The man stepped to the side. "The Hokage is, of course, always welcome into our compound," he said, recognizing one of the phrases the Hokage had given them to recognize him in a previous visit. Everyone had been a little on edge until he proved himself with some of his jutsu and knowledge. "Of course, Hyuga-san," he said pleasantly, walking in. "I don't suppose that the elders are in council at the moment?" The guard raised an eyebrow. "Actually, Hokage-sama, they are. They just entered into it a few minutes ago." Sarutobi raised both of his eyebrows in surprise. "Really? Well, that's amazingly convenient," he said, inwardly cursing that he wouldn't have time to waste visiting with Minato's boy. Curse his luck. "Could someone show me where they are meeting?" "Of course, Hokage-sama." The man motioned, and another Hyuga branch member appeared, leading the man to the meeting. The Hokage mused on what he would say, and what he Hyugas would decide. After outbursts on both sides in the initial negotiation, he had had the Hyugas stay away from the meetings and either sent them briefings or presented them himself. It was while he was thus thinking that he missed the blonde streak come running across his path, nearly making him fall over. He turned in surprise to the cry of, "Ow!" that came from the young boy, now sitting on his rear and rubbing his forehead. "What you do that for, old man?" The Hokage grinned. It looked like he would be the boy after all. "I'm terribly sorry, Naruto-san. I was thinking and not watching who it was running across my path." Naruto looked up in surprise. "How do you know my name?" The man chuckled. "Oh, I know many people's names," he said. "And I've been meaning to come visit you. It was me that but you here for the Hyugas to look after all." Naruto's eyes, meanwhile, had widened in surprise. "You're the Hokage," he exclaimed, the loudness of his reply causing the Hyuga present to wince. How did an old man like you get to be Hokage? The Hokage and his escort sweat dropped. Well, I wasn't always this old, and when the Yondaime died, I took his place again. I was Hokage before him, after all. Really? Cool. I'll bet he was way better, though. Sarutobi chuckled. It was obvious that Naruto admired the fourth Hokage quite a bit. He was very powerful. You like him a lot, huh? Naruto nodded vigorously. You bet. And one day I'm gonna become Hokage too. Just like just like him. And then I'll protect the village and the people close to me. Like Neji-kun and Hinata-chan. Naruto. It's Hinata-sama. Don't forget your place. Naruto looked a little sheepish. Sorry Hitachi-san. I'll remember next time. Sarutobi looked at him in interest. He wondered what that slip of tongue was, but it probably didn't matter. He looked at the sky for a second, sighing. Well, Naruto, I need to have a meeting with the elders, but I've enjoyed talking with you. If you're ever bored, feel free to come visit me, okay son? Naruto jumped up and down. Really? In the Hokage's office? In the tower? Sweet. I'll be by in no time old man. He looked around. Oops. Sorry I'm supposed to be catching Neji-ni-san. See y'all later Oji-san. The two men watched him run off just as quickly as he had shown up, both sweat dropping again. I'm terribly sorry, Hokage-sama. The boy has refused to learn proper manners, despite our best efforts. I apologize. Oh no, that's quite alright. The boy is doing much for this village, after all, being that creature's prisoner. The Hyuga scowled slightly. I still don't think it's a good idea, he said, tersely. He was one of several who didn't think positively on the boy, though many enjoyed his good nature and the laughs he brought to the stoic compound. Well, that's my business, I think, so for now, let's just focus on getting to that meeting. The man bowed and then started walking again. Of course, Hokage-sama. This way. There was a knock on the door. Hizashi had sent the two boys out to play after their lesson on etiquette. He knew it seemed counterproductive, but they were still children, so where was the harm? He sighed, though. He had seen Neji going harder recently, had he had only yesterday pinpointed it at the same thing that had made him harden when he was a child. It was the main family. He thought he knew why Hinata had been crying, now, that night she had been kidnapped. Neji, he thought, must have exploded, but he waited till Naruto wasn't around so that he wouldn't hurt his little brother. He still cared about him, but even there Hizashi could see resentment that Naruto cared about Hinata so much. It would make things so much easier if he could just tell them all the truth, but Naruto was the one who had been told and that was only because Hizashi had thought that he would die that night. Now he had to keep an eye on Naruto and make sure he didn't slip up. It seemed, however, that Naruto wouldn't do that. He was more focused than ever in everything he did. All Hizashi had to do was remind him that if he didn't keep up, they would keep him behind and he wouldn't be able to be near Hinata, protecting her as he had promised. Every time he would concentrate more, finally grasping whatever it was Hizashi was trying to teach him. Then there was a knock on the door, bringing him out of his thoughts. Yes, come in, he called. When several of the elders came in he quickly stood and bowed. Honorable elders, what can I do for you today? Hizashi, it has come to our attention that Kid Country will not be satisfied, no matter how much we talk with them, that their Kumo Nen acted dishonorably and that Hiyashi-sama was within his rights to kill him. They will seek war if we do not come up with a solution to appease them. He nodded, a little confused. Of course, but what does that have to do with me? The elder looked at each other a moment before one nodded and their speaker addressed Hizashi again. You see, they are demanding Hiyashi's blood and we were thinking. Hizashi struggled within himself as he listened to what they had to say. It seemed his destiny was catching up with him and he would have no choice, once again, in what he had to do. What would happen to Neji and Naruto? Who would protect Hinata? He smiled as he thought about Naruto. He realized that he didn't have look on this as destiny. He could embrace it of his own accord. After all, their plan would not actually mean that what he did was done because they said it. He could choose this path for himself. He smiled. Gladly I will do this, elders, but not for the reasons you think, he added in his mind. He almost gasped at the sensation that filled him at that moment. He could feel it so strongly. His smile widened as he realized what it was. This was how it felt to be free, and make decisions on your own, to give because you wanted to. To choose to do something because it protected those you loved. Yes, gladly? There was much debate in the Hyuga Council, of course. Hiashi trying to find some way to make them see that they had no right to require what they did. But finally, after realizing that the Kumo would not give up, and knowing that his brother knew the secrets that Hiashi had kept for so long, he offered to give in to their demands, willingly die to preserve the peace, and keep his daughter safe, for the time being. Hisashi would look after her anyways, right? Didn't expect what came next. We will have to hand over Hisashi's body in place of yours. Hiashi froze in shock, looking across the room at his brother. Hisashi seemed a little more reserved than usual. Hisashi has already agreed, the elder continued as Hiashi thought. No. No, they can't do this to him. He is caged as well. They can't make him do this. And he cares so much about the children. He interrupted. But what they want is the secrets of the Byakugan abilities. With Hisashi, once he's killed, that ability will be sealed. He looked up, trying to make them see that they couldn't do this. I don't see how they could country being satisfied with that. The elder spoke up again. Hey, that may be their true intention, but the demand from the cloud was simple. Hand over Hyuga Hiashi's body. If we act like we've agreed and hand over Hisashi's body, which is a duplicate of yours, they won't be able to complain any further. But, Hiashi tried to interject, but failing. Hiashi, the time has come. Each generation has protected the Hyuga blood in this way. You must have the heart to let go of even a sibling to protect that blood. That is the destiny of the main family, and that's the destiny of those born as Hyuga. Hiashi ground his teeth in frustration, trying to come up with another way around this. Hisashi looked over at his brother. He kept back his own tears. Wasn't there anything that he could say to his brother? Something to ease his pain? Maybe even a message to take care of Hinata better, and watch over Naruto and Neji as well. What happened to the always confident Hiashi-sama, he said suddenly. Hiashi looked at him in surprise, but it quickly turned to anger. Didn't Hisashi realize what he was trying to do? This is vastly different from anything in the past. I can't so easily. He broke off as he was hit hard in the gut by Hisashi. Gah, Hisashi, you? Everyone looked on in surprise. Did he really dare to attack his brother, the Hyuga family head? Was he looking for death? Was he actually looking for it? Please, let me go, he said softly. Why you have Neji? Naruto, why for the main family, do you choose death, he said, his silent question still relayed to his brother, why he was abandoning the Hokage's child, and his promise to protect Hinata. That's incorrect, Hisashi replied, causing surprise again. I have hated the main family, honestly, I still do. That's why, it's not for you as member of the main family that I do this. I want to die and save you as my brother, to give you that freedom you think you don't have. To give you a second chance to show your child you love her, and to extend your reach to watch out for Naruto and Neji as you think on how I've saved your life. I have mostly shown my ugly side to Neji in the past years, the hate I have towards the main family, and Naruto as well, though I have let them befriend Hinata, and they are now a part of each other's lives, brother. Quote, yet here, I finally understand my own will. So please, tell this to Neji, and to Naruto, that I am not being killed to protect the main family, so help him not to hate you all as I have. Help him love his family, and be with Hinata and Naruto, so they will not be alone, but to protect Neji, Naruto, my brother, my family, and the entire village. I am choosing death with my own will. Hiashi somehow understood the messages being sent to him from his brother, but it was hard to take in, and he couldn't understand, internally, what some of it meant. Choosing death is freedom, he asked from the floor. Brother, I wanted, just once, to disobey the Hyuga destiny, which is part of why I tried so hard to change Hinata's and Neji's with Naruto. I wanted to choose my own destiny, that's all. Hiashi cried as Hisashi was taken away. He asked not to see his children for fear that he would lose his resolve. The Hokage remained in his seat for some time as they prepared Hisashi's honorable death. Finally, he stood and walked over to the Hyuga head, looking down on him. See what these traditions have done. Your brother dies, and leaves two boys fatherless. He sighed. It would have hurt about the same though, I suppose, had you died and Hinata been left alone. He shook his head. And here you are, having had the power to change all these things for years, and you did nothing. Hiashi couldn't work himself up to a glare. I am as trapped as he, Hokage. You think it doesn't hurt me to see my brother being sacrificed? I am trapped. The Hokage shook his head. No, Naruto is trapped, But still I saw him, and a boy who should be sad and lonely, being the jailer that he is happy. He chose to be so, despite all the hate for him that even exists here in the compound, where the Yondaime had hoped he could live happily. He is truly trapped, and he doesn't pity himself, despite not knowing where this hair comes from. What about you? What does this make you? The Hokage left, and Hiyashi finally pushed himself up. A few Hyuga medics came in after to make sure he was alright. The deed was done, and Hiyashi could no longer interfere. Meanwhile, he was left to ponder on the Hokage's words, and his brother's, both from that day, and the day he had learned his brother knew his secret. He looked up at the ceiling, still crying for the loss of his brother. Were they right? Did he really have the power to change things? He clenched his fist. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but Hizashi was on the right track. It was time to escape destiny. He would change himself, and then the clan, as much as he could. It was time to set the bird free. Naruto was crying again. As he'd run off, he'd realized that the Hokage was probably going to be talking to the village elders. He had a feeling that it had to do with that night his Hinata-chan had been taken from him, the night he promised to protect her forever. He quickly formulated a plan. He had noticed, looking around for a new spot to hide and listen to the elders, that one of the builds was a little higher than the council building, and if he jumped from it just right, he would still land, albeit uncomfortably, on the roof, with one being able to see him. Had grinned as he'd pulled it off, though his leg hurt pretty badly now, and he snuck into the airshafts again. He found his spot inside, and went to listen in. He was shocked by what he heard. His papa was gonna die. No, he almost cried out at that, but he felt that there was something else going on as his papa spoke. He could feel that he was trying to assure someone. Was it him? Did he know Naruto was there? No, he couldn't, but still. Afterwards, Naruto left, jumped out his old way to the surprise of the guards, crying as hard as he could. He ran to his room, slamming the sliding door shut, and throwing himself on his bed. A few minutes later Neji came in. Naruto, where were you? Papa said we were supposed to play, and then you disappeared. Naruto? He was surprised to see his brother crying like that. He'd never seen him cry. The closest was that one night. His eyes got hard for a second. Naruto, is Hinata-sama alight? This made Naruto stop crying as he jerked his head up to look at his brother in surprise. Hinata-chan? I think so, maybe I should go check on her. Neji rolled his eyes. No, Naruto-kun, she's fine, I'm sure. I just thought maybe she was hurt because you were crying so bad. Naruto had burst into tears again, not able to talk. Neji tried in vain to console him, finally giving up. Fine, I'll do it. He hadn't meant to say it out loud, but Naruto didn't hear anyways, otherwise he might have asked what Neji meant. What Neji meant, though, was that he was going to get Hinata. He hated to see his brother cry, but these days he almost hated Hinata worse. If it wasn't so odd for Naruto to cry, and if he hadn't been told his dad was in a council meeting, he wouldn't have done it. However, this time he did it, walking through the halls to where Hinata-sama would be at this time of day. It was nearing dinner, so she was probably getting ready for the main family's meal. He would have to be quick. He took a breath to steel himself, then knocked on her door. It slid open. Hinata timidly spoke as she saw her beloved cousin. She was timid, more so than usual, simply because she could feel his anger, even if she didn't understand it. Yes, Neji-kun? He clenched his fists. Hinata-sama, Naruto is crying for some reason, and he won't stop. Will you please come and see him? I think seeing you will help him stop. Hinata gasped. Like Neji, she had never known Naruto to cry so much that he couldn't stop. Of course, Neji-kun. I'll be right there. She grabbed her sandals and her bow that she'd been about to put in her hair and rushed out of the room after Neji, who was setting a fast pace. Soon enough, there was Naruto, crying on his bed. She rushed over to him, trying to get him to talk. It took a couple minutes, but sure enough, as Neji predicted, Hinata's presence calmed him, and soon he was only crying a little. Naruto-kun, please, what was it you were crying about? Naruto looked down in sadness. Papa-san is gonna die. What? The shout was Neji's. What? No. Why? Before Naruto could answer, Hiyashi walked into the room. He is dying in my place at the demand of the Kumo for the death of their shinobi that tried to kidnap Hinata. Neji clenched his fists in rage. No. He cried, and he raised his hands, pouring in chakra for the gentle fist, and charged his uncle. No. Neji cried as he charged his uncle. Hinata yelped and Naruto yelled at him to stop, but Hiashi just dropped to his knees, grabbing Neji's hands. No, 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 no. The boy kept screaming, tears pouring down his face as he tried to kick his uncle since his arms were captured. He didn't care right now if he died or not, screw the caged bird seal. He just kept attacking, screaming at the injustice of it all. After a few minutes he just let his body go limp and fell so that only his arms, still held by Hiashi, were held up. At this point Hiashi, too, lowered his arms and let go of Neji to grasp him by his arms just below the shoulder. Hinata and Naruto, meanwhile, were still sitting on the bed, Hinata unconsciously holding Naruto's arm. Both were looking at the two of them with more than a little worry. Neji had, after all, attacked the clan head, and they both knew how severe that was, and Naruto knew that he had to keep his promise to protect Hinata, but what about Neji? If Hiashi attacked him back, he'd have to protect him as a brother does, but what would happen to Hinata? No one, however, expected what came next. Hiashi, the man of stone, lifted Neji up by his arms, pulled him close, setting him down on his lap, and embraced him in a hug. There was a collective gasp of shock, especially from Neji, who promptly tried to escape the embrace of his uncle, the man who had caused his father's death. Neji, he whispered, I'm so sorry. Neji stopped, arms outstretched as he tried to push himself away from his uncle's chest. He wasn't sure that he'd heard right. Had the clan head said he was sorry? I'm so very sorry, Neji. If I had been stronger, you would still have a father, and I would still have a brother. He looked down at the boy. Neji, I was ready to die, in fact, I almost welcomed it. This life has been full of pain with little joy. All my life I have tried to do the best for the clan, removing from me everything that could bring joy because I needed to not feel, because I needed to be stone. The man gave his own sob. I have pushed away everything, but my brother, he looked up at Hinata. My brother took care of that which I neglected, and gave my daughter friends and love especially is what I should have given her. Hinata looked down at the ground, a slight blush coming into her cheeks from the embarrassment at hearing her father mention her and love in the same sentence. She had always hoped to hear such words from him, to hear that she made him proud, that she'd done something to please him. Was this that moment? Hiashi spoke again. Neji, I know I cannot replace my brother, but he gave his life so that I could live. He chose to die for me, so the least I can do is live for him, and protect that which he loved. Can you accept me not as a father, but as something close? And I will look after you all as best as I can. Neji had long since dropped his arms, almost in shock at the words spoken by the Hyuga clan head. Was he being true, or was this some sort of falsehood? Surely no main family member would actually care enough about a branch member to do something like this. Naruto, though, he was actually looking at Hiashi with some slight hope. Hinata had told him how much she wanted to please her father, and it sounded like he was happy with her, and besides, maybe he could still have a dad. Even though it would be a different dad, but would this mean that he got to spend more time with Hinata then? And would this make Neji happy again? Neji hid it, but Naruto could feel that he'd been really mad for the last little while. He thought it started about when Hinata was kidnapped, but he really couldn't quite remember when it had started. Could this end it? And why was Neji taking so long to decide, and why? Then Naruto looked down at his arm as he realized something was holding it down. He'd been about to scratch his head, but there was this weight there. He saw it was his Hinata-chan holding his arm and he blushed a little, looking to the side. Hiashi meanwhile had raised his hand to Neji's head. Neji, I know you don't like me, so I don't think you're going to accept me, but I will give you this gift regardless. He placed his palm on Neji's forehead and channeled some chakra before Neji could react, and muttered, "Caged bird seal release." There was a flash of light in the room and everyone covered their eyes. Neji screamed in pain once again as a pain reminiscent to when he first received the seal attacked him once again, though it did feel different this time. A moment later Neji realized that he was laying against something and there was talking going on in the room. Had he passed out? What was going on now? Make sure that we pretend it's the same, sadly, but I promise, no matter what I say around others, Hinata my child, I am very proud of you. Neji opened his eyes. He was still in Naruto's room, but he was laying down on the bed, his head on Naruto's pillow, lifted up into a reclining position. Before him Naruto and Hinata were sitting with their legs hovering over the ground on the left side of the bed, and the Hyuga head was kneeling before them, A hands on Hinata's cheeks, their foreheads touching, both of them with tears in their eyes. She was holding onto one of his arms, holding it tightly, the biggest smile she had ever worn visible on her face. Naruto was actually sitting calmly for once, hands on his lap, face down, a tender smile on his face in place for his usually exuberant one. "What did you do to me?" Neji asked coldly, voice laced with venom. Naruto and Hinata looked at him in surprise, though Hinata also showed a glimpse of fear for his anger. Hiashi, however, smiled at him. "Neji, I have made you free from the caged bird seal." "How dare you, what?" Neji had expected some greater seal to force him into obedience since he had attacked him, but this? A release? He reached up to his forehead, hand trembling, but as his hand rested on the scared skin, his anger returned. "You lie, uncle. Even I can still tell that my seal is there." Hiashi raised a hand, making the sign that activates the seal's effects, and Neji braced himself for the pain, to feel what could only be described as something akin to a cool wash of water coming over his forehead. He opened one eye, still tense and expecting the pain to come at any second, to see Hiashi's proud smile. "A seal I developed myself after years of studying the original caged bird sealing technique. I have found a way to neutralize it. However, if a Hyuga marked with the seal suddenly appeared without it, people would grow angry and some of the elders might even order their death before anyone actually know what was happening. So, I leave the mark of the seal, and replace the pain with the ability to feel when someone is trying to activate the seal. In this manner you can pretend that you are caught by the seal and no one will know that you are free from its influence." He smiled again at the boy's now wide-eyed comprehension, though there was still doubt. "So, Neji, I expect you to pretend that it still affects you, and in time maybe you will cease to hate me and my—" He glanced at Hinata, Neji and him understanding, Hinata and Naruto missing the glance. Heishi cleared his throat. "Also, my brother told me that you showed a great deal of promise with the Hyuga clan technique, the gentle fist that I have been training Hinata in. Would you like to receive advanced training?" Neji could still only look at him with suspicion. All his life he had been looked down upon by the main branch. Always he was unimportant, Hinata weighing greater than he, and this man was her father. Did he trust him? Was he just lying about all of it? Neji sighed. After all, he was still a young boy and this was a lot to take in. "I'll have to think about it, Hiashi-san." "Call me uncle," Hiashi interrupted, "at least when any of the three of us are alone. We must keep up appearances for the rest of the clan, but for when we're alone, we can drop such things." He smiled. "And you can take all the time you need. It is your choice." Hiashi stood. "Hinata, we're late for dinner. Come with me, please." Hinata looked down a moment, as if feelings guilty that they were going to be late, as if it were her fault. Hiashi sighed. He'd truly been hard on her, hadn't he? "Hinata, it's not your fault we're late, it's mine. You don't have to be sad." The small girl looked up with a smile on her face. "I know, father. I am just happy as all, and I'm trying to put away on my smile for while we're at dinner." Hiashi chuckled a little. Hinata was taking it a little more seriously than he had meant for her to, and she had spoken almost without a stutter. "Well, we have a little ways to walk. I'm sure you can manage to hide it by then." He composed his own face as he slid the door open. "Now come Hinata, we don't want to be any later than we already are." "Hi." Hinata slipped off the bed, rushing to the door before pausing. Then she turned back and hugged Naruto. "I am sorry you lost your father, Naruto-kun." Naruto smiled and hugged her back, reassuring her that he'd be fine. Hinata gave a bow to Neji, fearing to give him a hug still. "Neji-kun, I really am sorry for your loss. I hope you will be alright." Hned, and then she rushed back to the door. "Come Hinata, we've already wasted too much time with them when it's time for dinner," Hiashi said as another Hyuga passed by, giving the children a small wink. "Hi, father," Hinata said, bowing her head, and they left, the door sliding closed behind them. Then Naruto turned to his brother. He was still a little depressed to give what would have been a great whoop. "So, Ni-san, this could be kinda cool." Neji looked down at the sheets, clutching the sheets with his hands. "Naruto Ni-san, I know you'll be fine, but I need to think about this for a little longer." Naruto looked at him curiously. "Why?" Neji scrunched his eyebrows together. "I'll tell you some other time," was his reply. Naruto rolled his eyes, flopping down on the bed and starting to complain what a lame brother Neji was, making the older boy smile. He wondered, can things ever go back to normal? Things never really went back to normal at the Hyuga household. Hiyashi had been too directly impacted to leave it that way, so things began to change, although many did not notice, and the changes were very subtle. Outside of Hiyashi's immediate family, now including Naruto and Neji, it was mostly the branch members who noticed. Lady Hinata smiled more often, for example, and Lord Hiyashi didn't scowl as much. One or two branch members actually swore that they saw him laugh when picking Hinata up from playing with Naruto. They also noticed that Neji distanced himself from the other two for a good while. While it used to be that the three of them were constantly seen playing together, these days it was mostly just Naruto who could be seen in the company of both of them, while the other two seemed to avoid each other. On the other hand, the main branch of the Hyuga family noticed that Naruto was much closer to Hinata than he used to be. He seemed almost as if he were a bodyguard. Some laughed with each other at the idea, but some would thoughtfully raise a hand to their chin when it was brought up. However, the years did pass. While Neji did choose to take up the training in the Gentle Fist, he still remained aloof from Hiyashi and Hinata. This made Naruto more uncomfortable as time went on. He didn't understand it, especially when Hinata still wore the ribbons and sash from the last birthday that they had all three still been close. Only a year or two later, though, Neji had started at the academy, so he was gone more often anyways, and Hanabi began to be old enough to play with them. Hinata and Naruto both were willing to cater to the younger child, Hinata because she dearly loved her sister, Naruto because he just loved playing games and hadn't totally outgrown some of them. Still, the day came a year later that they, too, began to attend the academy. It was a hard day on Naruto. Several of the teachers seemed to look down on him and treat him more poorly than the rest. It even seemed as if they ignored others in favor of punishing him. The other kids weren't much better. Several of them enjoyed going out of their way to mess with him. Naruto never understood why, but he was glad for the Hyuga training he'd had. He began taijutsu at a higher level than many of the academy students, so he was able to deter most physical harm, but then again, when fights broke out it didn't matter what he said, he always got blamed, even if he knew the teacher had seen the other students attack him first. Well, you must have done some to provoke them, little brat. Most would say. Hinata would always worry over him and ask if he was okay. He would laugh it off, for her sake. After all, he knew why the teachers sided against him, and he knew that they were wrong. Still, he couldn't let his Hinata get upset. Instead, he took to pranking at a more extreme level to put a smile on her face. Hiyashi, meanwhile, was being somewhat taxed with his double life, and yet, he had never felt better, nothing could make him give it up. The smile on his daughter's face when they were alone and he told her how proud of her he was made his heart swell to bursting, and almost break when he thought on how his brother was missing this with his son. Neji truly was a genius in the Gentle Fist. He mastered the clan techniques quickly at each step. And once he had entered the academy, Hiyashi noticed that Neji had taken to late-night workouts while the rest of the clan slept, or were guarding the compound. In turn, Hiyashi would study his progressing skills and make sure that their training sessions together were directed to most benefit the young boy, who never called him anything but Hiyashi-sama, or Lord Hyuga. His smile that he had been wearing as he thought of the children dropped at that. It saddened him that he had failed to help his nephew as his brother had wanted. Still, he could not keep trying. He remembered the words of the Hokage about Naruto, and made that his inspiration, to keep trying to overcome the hate. Now, though, he had paperwork to do, and an appointment to schedule with Yuhi Kurenai, who the Hokage had said would be his daughter's Junin sensei after the academy. So the Hyuga Lord began to shuffle through the papers again, wondering what the children were doing at school. Haha, you can't catch me. Naruto was running through the village, a paint can in his hand. He was wearing a pair of goggles that Hinata had given him as a birthday present a year or two back. As a gift from the girl he had promised to guard with his life, who imprisoned the beast that was supposed to be his burden, he could do nothing but wear them as a sign of his devotion to her. He also wore a loose-fitting dark blue shirt with an orange lightning bolt on front. He had on a pair of orange pants and an orange jacket was tied around his waist. It had a spiral on the back, just like on the back of a shinobi's battle vest, but he knew now that it was the symbol of his mother's country. He had done all he could, since he entered the academy, to learn about his father, the fourth Hokage, and about his mother. He had almost told Hinata about his parentage once when she helped in his research, but that would mean telling her what it was trapped inside of her. And he couldn't bear to tell her that such a gentle creature as she had a demon as destructive as the Kyuubi inside her. Still, he hoped she'd get a good laugh out of this one. He had decided that in the days preceding the graduation exam he ought to pull off an extra big prank. So, he had painted on the Hokage faces today, even his dad's. It had been a little hard to do the fourth Hokage like the other three, knowing that, but then again, he'd done Jii-san's face as well, so he decided he might as well do his dad, too. Besides, if he didn't, people might begin to realize that he knew more than he ought to. Of course, now he had to doge the NPCs, Naruto Prank Control Squad. He chuckled as he thought about how they formed a special group just to catch him. Naruto, you get back here. Yeah, Naruto. You aren't going to get away with it this time. Naruto just kept running and laughed. Ah, you're just jealous because I can do it and you can't. Haha, just keep trying to catch me, you losers. Naruto. Soon enough, though, Naruto gave them the slip by sidestepping and putting up a camouflage sheet that matched the fence they were running by. Hold up there, Naruto. You're in big trouble, mister. They ran by without even seeing him. Hey, that was too easy, the blonde said, not seeing the shinobi bending down behind him. Oh yeah, Naruto. Naruto jumped up in the air, flailing around before falling on his rear to look up at his teacher. Iruka-sensei, what are you doing here? Iruka stood straight and pointed an accusing finger at the boy. No, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in class. Naruto grinned sheepishly as Iruka grabbed him and picked him up by the shoulder. Oh wow. Watch it, sensei, that hurts. Yeah, well maybe you should have thought of that before skipping class. And so Naruto was dragged back to class by Iruka till he was deposited on the floor, gaining some laughs from some of his classmates, though Hinata gave out a small gasp when Naruto hit the floor. Ow, Iruka-sensei, did you have to put me down that hard? Well, Naruto, your grades aren't exactly the best, so with the graduation exam coming up tomorrow you need to quit fooling around and be serious. Naruto just laughed, shrugging. Ah, come on, everyone takes this crap too seriously. They all needed a laugh, he said, winking at Hinata, who smiled back at him. Thus he failed to miss Iruka's eye twitch until it was too late. Fine, since you missed it, everyone will review the transformation jutsu. Ah, what a drag. Soon everyone was in a line and began performing the jutsu. Naruto was apologizing to Hinata, of course, while some of the other kids continued to give him glares. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan, I really didn't mean to make you have to redo this stuff. I was just trying to get in a laugh. It's all right, she whispered back so as to not interrupt the other students doing the jutsu. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto winced before Shikamaru and Ino spoke up to him as stepped forward. This is a total waste of time, Naruto. We always pay for your screw-ups. He glared at them slightly. Yeah, well, you don't put up with what I do, either, so it's even, he whispered back at them, making sure Hinata didn't hear, then flashing her a grin. Do your best. Of course, Hinata. Naruto. We don't have all day. Alright, sensei, I'm here, he said as he stepped all the way forward. He did the seal, then prepared his chakra. Transform. There was the usual smoke, and Naruto felt a little bad about it as he made up his mind on his transformation. The smoke cleared and there she was. Moi. A striking blonde figure now stood, with strategic cloud covering, wearing nothing and Iruka fell back in a massive nosebleed. What the heck was that? Then there was another poof as the jutsu was dispelled. Cut the stupid tricks. This is your last warning. Several students laughed as Naruto, once again, was deposited on his rear. Hinata, meanwhile, was uncovering her eyes, blushing heavily at Naruto's technique. Still, he was giving her an apologetic look, and it was kind of funny. Still, she kept her grin hidden, though Naruto could tell he'd amused her. He could see it in her eyes. She always did have such nice eyes. Hyuga Hinata, it's your turn. Eep. He timidly walked forward as Naruto clapped her shoulder. Don't worry, he whispered, you'll be great. She nodded as she made the sign and gathered her chakra. Transform. Oh Naruto, what am I going to do with you? Naruto just grinned guiltily and shrugged his shoulders. Sorry, Jii-san, but what with how the people treat me at school, well, it really bugs Hinata-chan. So, I did it to make her laugh so she wouldn't get down about how they me treat, you see. Hiruzen tipped his hat down to hide his face. He was fighting between a grin and a grimace. He kept talking to the teachers at the academy, but the only one, it seemed, that was willingly to listen was Iruka. The rest kept treating the boy badly, no matter what they were threatened with, and even after a few had gone through with the proscribed punishments. Eventually he looked up. "You know I can't let you off for just that, right Naruto?" Naruto laughed and nodded. "Of course. Why do you think I came prepared?" Sarutobi blinked. "Came prepared? I see. Well, I've have Iruka supervise you in your cleaning, then, and the two of you are to report to me as soon as you're done, understand?" Naruto nodded, saluting before running out to find Iruka-sensei. "Sure, no problem. We'll be back in a jiffy. What is that boy up to?" "Oh Naruto, now we'll be here for hours waiting for you to get this clean." Iruka shook his head. "Ah well, it can't be helped." The young teacher rubbed his chin for a second as Naruto smirked in front of him. "Well, how about a bowl of ramen, my treat, when you get cleaned up here, huh?" Naruto laughed, much to Iruka's surprise. "Haha, Iruka-sensei, that is some serious motivation, but come on, did you really think I'd do something that would keep me away from protecting Hinata-sama for that long?" "Huh?" Iruka's face was filled with confusion as he followed a now running Naruto out to the Hokage monument. He was shocked when Naruto ran up to the top of the monument where a few cleaning supplies waited for him. "Naruto, how far in advance did you plan this?" Naruto grinned as he started picking up the cleaning gear. "Well, getting the right paint took about 2 months, but I came up with the idea about 4 months ago." "What? Naruto, why did you, get the right paint? What do you mean by that?" Naruto grinned at him. All his things ready and correctly tied and secured to one of the several park benches. Bolted down into the ground, of course, and jumped off the side. Iruka quickly ran over to see what the boy was up to. He almost dislocated his jaw as he saw Naruto easily wiping away the paint with a few squirts of a water gun and a few swipes of a rag. He laughed after getting over his shock. "Wow, Naruto, you're smarter than we give you credit for. I think I'll still take you out for ramen after you're done." Naruto smiled as he kept working. "Only if Hinata-sama can come, too." Iruka waved a hand at him. "Ah, who cares, sure, she can come too. In fact, I'll pick her up now since I'm pretty sure you can handle this alone." "Alright, let's see if you can get back here before I finish. Whoever losses pays for Hinata, Iruka smirked this time. "Sure Naruto. Guess you'll be paying after all." Smirk still on his face, he brought up 2 fingers in a sign and shushined away. "Crap, I forgot to make that against the rules. Come on you stupid water. Come on." The Sandame looked in awe at the Hokage monument. Just an hour ago there had been paint everywhere, yet now it was completely clean. How had that boy done it? There was a knock on his door. Speak of the devil, sure enough, in came Naruto, accompanied by a smirking Iruka, and also the shy Hinata. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask. "So, Naruto, care to tell me how you cleaned the monument that quickly?" Naruto, slightly put out looking, regained a small smirk and straightened up into his usual confident stance. "Huh, you really thought I'd do a prank that would take hours to clean up? I ordered a special kind of paint that takes days to dry, so since it was still real wet, cleaning it was no problem." Hiruzen hid a chuckle by turning his head down. "Very well, your punishment is complete. What do you plan on doing with your, surprisingly, new free hours?" Naruto deflated slightly, and Iruka's smirk got bigger. "Well, we're going out for ramen. Iruka-sensei's paying for me, but I lost a bet with him, so I'm paying for Hinata." He put his hand behind his head. "Haha. Guess I didn't think that particular bet out as well as the first one, huh? Not that I mind paying for Hinata-chan, of course," he hurriedly added, causing Hinata to blush. "Very well, you may go, but make sure you come and visit me again soon. I know things are busy at the Hyuga compound, but having you in here brightens my day, Naruto-san." Naruto gave the old man a thumbs up. "You betcha, G-san. I'll be back after graduation is over no doubt." They left, Naruto being the one most especially eager to begin consuming ramen. Hiruzen thought. I hope these days last until I die, though a little less paperwork might be nice. So, Naruto, why paint on the Hokage faces anyways? I mean, you know who the Hokage are, right? Iruka considered the possibility that Naruto was enough of a spaz to not get what a Hokage was. Of course. They're the most powerful shinobi in the village, undefeated ninja champs. Everyone looks up to them and respects them, especially the fourth Hokage, he said, his voice getting a little softer as he spoke of the Yondaime. Yeah, the fourth Hokage was the greatest of them all, a real hero. Wondering at his silence as Hinata slowly and carefully ate her noodles. She knew why Naruto had done it, and appreciated it, but still wished he would just talk about the things that bothered him instead of trying to distract her. He was her friend, even if she wanted to be more than that. Wait, when had that happened? Hinata spilling her ramen was missed by the other as their conversation continued, Haruka prompting him to continue. So, why did? Naruto laughed. Well, why not? It was funny. You want proof? Well then, ask Hinata if she laughed. Hinata meeped and hid her face slightly, still trying to clean up the mess she'd made. It was true, she had laughed, but had then immediately covered to her mouth, hoping no one heard it. Second, I'm gonna surpass them and be the best Hokage ever. Believe it? Haruka stared at him for a moment, noodles not all the way in his mouth. Naruto may not have been the worst altogether in the class, but his comprehension usually left something to be desired, and he was far from being the best. Well, good luck then, he said, after slurping his noodles up. Haha, thanks Haruka-sensei. By the way, can I ask you a favor? Huh? What? You want another bowl? I want to try on your headband, please? What this? Haruka asked, bring a hand to grip his forehead protector. No way. You can only wear the leaf headband once you graduate the academy and become a shinobi. Ah, hee. Is that why you took your goggles off? I want another bowl. Haruka and Hinata both laughed at Naruto antics, the latter having finally cleaned up the mess. Still the thought was on her mind, when did my feelings towards Naruto-kun change like that, and how does he feel? A few minutes later Naruto put down his bowl and stood. Well, thanks for the ramen, Haruka-sensei, but I need to make sure that Hinata gets home on time, so we'll be going now. Hinata hopped down from her stool and stood beside Naruto, a slight blush on her face. Yes, Naruto is right. Father will want me home soon. Haruka smiled sadly. And I was starting to enjoy hanging out with you too. Oh well, he said, shrugging. Guess that's it for today, just make sure you're ready for the exam tomorrow. Naruto laughed as he and Hinata began walking away, waving at their sensei. Don't worry sensei, you know I'm better than that. Besides, if I didn't graduate, I couldn't stay with Hinata-chan. Haruka didn't miss the meep that Hinata gave out at that and waved back at them. Well, when did that happen? Well, I hope Naruto's right about tomorrow. Even Hinata could use a little help.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.